Black Void Outpost was one of the most dangerous stations in the outer systems. It floated alone in deep space near a dead mining sector where no law truly existed. Smugglers, pirates, bounty hunters, escaped criminals, and mercenaries all passed through the station. Most people came there to hide. Others came to make deals nobody else would touch. The station was always loud. Metal music blasted from old speakers. Alien languages mixed together like noise from a broken machine. Drunk fighters shouted at card tables. Robots moved between crowds carrying drinks while smoke filled the air under the dim red lights. Inside the largest bar on the station, nobody trusted anyone. Every person carried a weapon. Every table had secrets. And every mistake could get someone killed. Near the far side of the room, a human sat alone beside the counter. He wore an old dark leather jacket over a gray hoodie. His boots rested casually on a metal chair while he slowly drank from a scratched steel cup. Most people ignored him. Humans were rare this far from Earth, but not impossible to find. Still, some aliens kept their distance. Humans had a reputation. Dangerous. Unpredictable. Violent when pushed too far. The human looked relaxed, almost bored. A small scar crossed the side of his face, and his dark hair fell messily under the hood. The bartender, a four-armed alien named Kroll, carefully cleaned glasses while watching the room. Then suddenly, the main door opened. The sound echoed through the bar like thunder. Instantly, everything stopped. Music. Talking. Laughing. Even the robot servers froze in place. The entire bar became silent. Slowly, people turned toward the entrance. A tall figure stood in the doorway wearing black armor hidden beneath a long dark cloak. A metal mask covered most of the face, but two glowing red eyes burned beneath the hood. Cold air seemed to enter with him. Fear spread across the room immediately. One pirate quietly whispered a name. Varkros. Several aliens lowered their heads at once. Others slowly moved away from the center of the room. Nobody wanted attention from Varkros. The killer was famous across the outer systems. Some said he worked for rich governments. Others believed he hunted for fun. Entire crews had disappeared after crossing him. Nobody knew how many people he had killed. Only that the number was very high. Varkros slowly stepped inside the bar. Heavy boots echoed against the metal floor. Step. 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 The silence became painful. A nervous alien dropped a glass by accident. Nobody looked at him. Everyone watched Varkros. Everyone except one person. The human near the counter suddenly laughed. Loudly. Not a nervous laugh. Not a fake laugh. A real one. The sound shocked the entire room. Several aliens stared at the human like he had lost his mind. Even Kroll the bartender froze. The human leaned back in his chair, laughing harder now. "Oh man," he said between laughs, "this is the big scary killer everybody talks about." The room became even quieter somehow. Varkros stopped walking. Slowly, the glowing red eyes turned toward the human. A pirate near the door whispered nervously, "He's dead." The human wiped tears from his eyes and looked directly at the killer. "You're smaller than I expected," he added with a grin. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. One wrong word around Varkros usually ended with blood on the floor. But the human looked completely calm. Almost amused. Varkros walked toward him slowly. Every step felt heavy. Dangerous. The human finally lowered his boots from the chair and sat properly, though the smile never left his face. Several customers quietly reached for hidden weapons. They expected violence any second. Varkros stopped beside the table. Up close, he looked even more terrifying. The armor beneath the cloak carried marks from old battles. A long plasma rifle rested across his back. Small scars covered the exposed gray skin around his eyes. "You laugh at death," Varkros said in a cold mechanical voice. The human shrugged. "Death laughs at everybody eventually." A few aliens looked confused. Others looked terrified. Varkros stared at the human for several long seconds. "You are either brave," the killer finally said, "or incredibly stupid." The human took another slow drink. "Maybe both." One nervous mercenary quietly stood from his table and backed away. Nobody wanted to be close when fighting started. But something strange happened. Varkros did not attack. Instead, he studied the human carefully. "You are human," the killer said. "Last time I checked. Humans are uncommon here." The human smirked. "Yeah. Most aliens prefer places where gravity doesn't try to crush their bones every day." A few people nearby exchanged nervous looks. They had heard stories about Earth. A world with violent oceans. Massive predators. Deadly diseases. Storms powerful enough to destroy cities. A planet many species considered impossible for intelligent life. But humans survived there naturally. Some aliens called Earth a deathworld. Others called it hell. Varkros pulled out a chair and slowly sat across from the human. That alone shocked the room. Nobody sat with Varkros willingly. "You have a name?" the killer asked. The human tilted his head slightly. "Jack." "Jack what?" "Depends who's asking." Varkros ignored the joke. "I came looking for a human." Jack's smile faded slightly. "Well," he said quietly, "you found one." The killer reached inside his cloak. Instantly, half the room prepared for violence. But instead of a weapon, Varkros placed a small metal device onto the table. A hologram flickered to life above it. The image showed a young human woman with dark hair and serious eyes. Jack froze. For the first time that night, the laughter disappeared completely. The room suddenly felt colder. "You know her," Varkros said. Jack stared at the hologram silently for several seconds. Then his jaw tightened. "That's my sister." Murmurs spread across the bar. Varkros leaned forward slightly. "She stole something important." Jack looked up slowly. "What did she steal?" The killer's red eyes glowed brighter. "A weapon." The entire bar reacted immediately. Fear spread across every face. Jack's expression darkened. "And now?" Varkros remained silent for a moment. Then he answered quietly. "Now the Dominion wants her dead." The bar stayed silent after Varkros spoke. "Now the Dominion wants her dead." Jack stared at the hologram above the table without blinking. The small blue image of his sister slowly turned in the air while the light reflected across his face. For the first time since Varkros entered the room, Jack was no longer smiling. The people inside the bar noticed immediately. And somehow, that scared them more. Jack slowly leaned back in his chair. "What did she steal?" he asked again. Varkros remained still. "A classified weapon project." Jack's eyes narrowed. "That doesn't answer my question." The killer studied him for a moment before speaking again. "She stole military research from the Dominion Science Division." Several aliens nearby quietly cursed under their breath. Nobody liked hearing the Dominion's name. The Dominion controlled thousands of systems through fear and military power. Entire planets disappeared after rebelling against them. Jack crossed his arms. "And they sent the galaxy's favorite psychopath to hunt her down." "I was hired to find her," Varkros answered calmly. Jack looked at him carefully. But you haven't killed her. No. Why? Varkros did not answer immediately. That alone was strange. Killers like him usually never explained themselves. Finally, the red-eyed hunter spoke. Because something about this mission feels wrong. A few aliens nearby quickly moved farther away from the table. The conversation itself felt dangerous. Jack rubbed his chin slowly. So let me guess, he said. The Dominion told you she's some terrorist trying to destroy the galaxy. Yes. And you don't believe them? No. Jack gave a small smile. Good. That means you're not completely stupid. Before Varkros could answer, the bartender Kroll carefully approached the table carrying 2 drinks with his lower hands shaking slightly. And no trouble tonight, yes? Kroll asked nervously. Jack looked at him. That depends, he said casually. Kroll quickly placed the drinks down and almost ran back behind the counter. The bar remained tense. Nobody returned to their conversations. Everyone was secretly listening. Jack picked up the glass but did not drink. When did you last see my sister? 3 days ago. Where? A research station near Sector 9. Jack's expression changed slightly. Sector 9 was Dominion territory. Heavy military control. Almost impossible to enter alive. She escaped before I arrived, Varkros continued. But she left something behind. Jack raised an eyebrow. What? The killer slid a small data chip across the table. Jack stared at it carefully. She wanted you to have it, Varkros said. That surprised him. Jack slowly picked up the chip and turned it between his fingers. She knew I'd come looking, he muttered. She also knew the Dominion would follow. The room suddenly felt colder. Jack slipped the chip into his jacket pocket. Then he looked directly at Varkros. So why help me? Varkros leaned back slightly. Because I watched Dominion soldiers kill civilians on that station. Jack's eyes hardened. They were trying to hide something. The human nodded slowly. That sounded exactly like the Dominion. If they feared information getting out, they destroyed everyone connected to it. Jack finally took a drink from the steel cup. So what now? He asked. Now, Varkros said quietly, they are searching this station. Almost at the same moment. The emergency alarms screamed across the bar. Red warning lights flashed overhead. Everyone jumped in panic. A robotic voice echoed through the station speakers. Attention citizens. Dominion security forces have entered Black Void Outpost. All exits are temporarily locked. Fear exploded across the room. People rushed toward doors immediately. Several smugglers grabbed hidden weapons. A group of aliens near the back tried to escape through a side hallway. Then heavy footsteps echoed outside the bar. Jack sighed deeply. Perfect timing. The front doors suddenly burst open. More than 20 Dominion soldiers stormed inside wearing black combat armor and glowing helmets. Pulse rifles aimed across the room instantly. The commander stepped forward. Nobody move. The entire bar froze again. The commander scanned the crowd before locking onto Jack. There he is. Several customers immediately backed away from the human. Jack stayed seated. Relaxed. Annoyingly relaxed. The commander pointed directly at him. Jack Mercer, he shouted. You are under Dominion arrest for aiding a fugitive and stealing military property. Jack looked around the room casually. You guys really know how to ruin a peaceful evening. Nobody laughed. The commander clearly wasn't joking. Stand up slowly, the officer ordered. Jack looked at Varkros. You expecting this? Yes. And you still brought them here. They would have found you eventually. Jack sighed again. That's fair. The soldiers tightened their grip on their rifles. The commander stepped closer. Kneel now, he demanded. Jack slowly stood up. The movement alone made several soldiers nervous. Up close, he looked much larger than most humans. Broad shoulders. Heavy hands. Old scars visible across his neck. A man shaped by violence. The commander tried to sound confident. You are surrounded. Jack looked around the room. Yeah, he said calmly. Looks crowded. One soldier moved behind him with energy cuffs ready. Varkros quietly watched from his chair without moving. The commander noticed him. You, he snapped. Step away from the target. Varkros did not respond. Now. The killer slowly turned his glowing eyes toward the commander. Several Dominion soldiers became nervous instantly. Even they knew who Varkros was. The commander hesitated for half a second. That was enough. Jack moved. Fast. Faster than most eyes could follow. He grabbed the metal chair beside him and smashed it backward into the soldier reaching for the cuffs. Crash. The soldier flew across the room into a table. Before anyone reacted, Jack slammed his fist into another guard's helmet. The armor cracked instantly. Chaos exploded inside the bar. Open fire, the commander screamed. Pulse rifles lit the room with blue energy blasts. Customers dived behind tables screaming. Glass shattered everywhere. Jack flipped a heavy table onto its side for cover while laughing loudly again. Actual laughing. Like this was fun for him. Varkros watched carefully from his chair while soldiers rushed forward. One Dominion trooper aimed directly at Jack's head. The human grabbed a bottle from the counter and threw it hard enough to break the soldier's visor. Another charged him with an electric blade. Jack caught the attacker's arm and slammed him face first into the floor. Hard. Too hard. Several aliens stared in shock. Humans were strong. But this human fought like a machine built for war. Jack rolled behind cover near Varkros. Well? Jack shouted over the gunfire. You helping or just enjoying the show? The killer remained silent for 1 second. Then a grenade landed between them. The blinking explosive rolled across the floor. Several nearby aliens screamed. Without hesitation, Varkros kicked the grenade back toward the Dominion soldiers. Boom! The explosion shook the entire bar. Smoke filled the room instantly. Jack looked at the killer beside him. Then he grinned. There he is, Jack said. For the first time that night. Varkros almost smiled. Smoke filled the bar after the grenade exploded. Tables burned. Broken glass covered the floor. Half the lights no longer worked, causing sparks to rain from the ceiling. Customers hid behind overturned furniture while Dominion soldiers shouted orders through the chaos. But in the middle of the destruction, one sound stood out clearly. Jack Mercer was laughing. Not because he was crazy. Not because he enjoyed killing. He laughed because danger excited him. And that terrified everyone watching. Jack crouched behind the ruined counter beside Varkros while pulse fire blasted over their heads. You know, Jack said casually, most people buy me dinner before trying to arrest me. Varkros reloaded his rifle calmly. You joke too much during combat. Jack smirked. You don't joke enough. Another explosion shook the room. Dominion soldiers moved carefully through the smoke, scanning for targets. Their commander shouted angrily from behind cover. Do not let the human escape. One nervous soldier whispered into his helmet communicator. Sir, this human is not normal. Jack heard him. "That's rude," he called back loudly. A pulse blast slammed into the counter, sending metal pieces flying everywhere. Jack grabbed a broken bottle and threw it instantly. The sharp glass hit a soldier directly in the visor. The trooper screamed and dropped his rifle. Before the others could react, Jack rushed forward. Fast. Too fast. Most species in the galaxy were not built for sudden explosive movement. Alien bodies usually depended on technology or armor for strength. Humans were different. Earth had forced them to survive everything naturally. Heavy gravity. Dangerous weather. Wild predators. Disease. War. Humans evolved in chaos. And Jack looked perfectly comfortable inside it. A Dominion soldier charged with an electric blade. Jack sidestepped at the last second, grabbed the attacker's arm, and slammed him hard into the wall. Crack. The metal surface bent from the impact. Another soldier fired at Jack from across the room. Jack grabbed the fallen trooper's body and used it as a shield. The pulse round struck the armor instead. Then Jack threw the unconscious soldier directly into two more guards. All three crashed onto the floor. Several aliens hiding nearby stared in horror. One pirate whispered nervously, "How is he doing that?" An older mercenary answered quietly. "He's human." Like that explained everything. Jack picked up a pulse rifle from the floor and inspected it briefly. "Ha," he muttered. "Cheap design." Then he fired. The recoil pushed hard against his shoulder, but Jack barely noticed. Boom! A Dominion soldier flew backward across a table. Jack tossed the rifle aside immediately. "Still prefer human guns." Varkros watched carefully while eliminating targets with cold precision. Every shot from the killer hit perfectly. But even he noticed something strange about Jack. The human adapted instantly. Every second of combat made him more dangerous. Jack was studying enemy movement without even thinking about it. Predicting attacks. Using the environment. Turning chaos into advantage. Another group of soldiers rushed through the side entrance. At least 10 this time. The commander pointed toward Jack immediately. "Bring him down." The soldiers opened fire together. Blue plasma bolts filled the room. Jack grabbed the heavy metal table beside him and flipped it upward like a shield. Several aliens gasped. The table should have been too heavy for a single human. Jack shoved forward through the barrage while laughing again. The soldiers panicked. One stepped backward. Another missed completely. Fear had already started spreading among them. Jack suddenly threw the table directly into the front line. Crash! 3 soldiers hit the floor instantly. Then the human charged. A fist slammed into armor. An elbow shattered a visor. A kick sent one trooper crashing over the counter. Pure chaos followed him like a storm. Varkros finally understood why humans frightened the galaxy. It was not just their strength. It was not just their violence. Humans refused to stop. Pain slowed them down, but rarely ended the fight. Jack already had blood running down one arm from a pulse burn. He acted like he did not even notice. One terrified Dominion soldier backed away while aiming shakily. "What are you?" the trooper whispered. Jack grinned. "Hungry." Then he punched the soldier unconscious. The commander finally lost patience. "Use shock grenades," he screamed. Several grenades flew toward Jack at once. Varkros instantly moved. The killer fired 3 precise shots midair. Boom! 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 The grenades exploded before reaching the human. Jack looked back at him. "Nice shooting. I prefer efficient battles." Yeah. I prefer loud ones. Another squad entered the bar from the rear hallway. This time they brought a heavy combat drone. The floating machine moved into the center of the room with rotating cannons aimed directly at Jack. Its red scanner locked onto him immediately. Target identified. The cannons opened fire. The entire bar exploded into destruction. Tables shattered apart. Walls melted under plasma fire. Customers screamed and ran deeper into cover. Even Jack ducked this time. Okay, he admitted, that's annoying. Varkros calmly aimed his rifle. The drone uses military armor. Standard weapons will not penetrate. Jack's eyes moved around the ruined room quickly. Searching. Thinking. Then he smiled. Oh, I've got an idea. Varkros immediately disliked that smile. Jack suddenly sprinted straight toward the drone. What are you doing? Varkros asked sharply. The drone targeted him instantly. Heavy plasma rounds blasted across the floor. Jack slid under the attack, grabbed a fallen metal pole from the wreckage, and jumped onto a nearby table. The machine turned rapidly. Too slowly. Jack slammed the metal pole directly into the drone's spinning cannon. Sparks exploded everywhere. The weapon system jammed instantly. Before the drone recovered, Jack grabbed the machine with both hands. Muscles strained under his jacket. Then, with a roar, he lifted the combat drone off the ground. Several aliens stared in complete disbelief. Even Dominion soldiers froze. Jack turned and threw the machine directly into the advancing troops. The drone crashed into them like a missile. Boom! The explosion shook the entire station sector. Silence followed. Smoke drifted through the broken bar. Dominion soldiers slowly backed away. Nobody wanted to charge the human anymore. The commander looked terrified now. This is impossible, he whispered. Jack stepped forward through the smoke. Bleeding. Breathing heavily. Still smiling. That's the problem with you people, Jack said calmly. You think humans care about impossible. The commander raised his weapon with shaking hands. Jack's eyes suddenly became cold. Dangerously cold. Then station alarms changed tone. A robotic voice echoed overhead. Warning. Multiple unauthorized ships approaching station perimeter. Varkros looked upward immediately. That is not Dominion. Jack frowned slightly. Then who is it? Before anyone could answer. The entire station violently shook. The entire station shook violently. Lights flickered across the ruined bar while dust fell from the ceiling. Several customers screamed as another explosion echoed somewhere outside the station walls. Jack quickly grabbed the edge of a broken table to steady himself. What the hell was that? He asked. Varkros looked toward the ceiling carefully. Ships, the killer answered. Heavy military ships. The Dominion commander suddenly smiled behind his damaged armor. You're too late, he said proudly. The fleet has arrived. Jack's eyes narrowed. What fleet? Before the commander could answer, the station speakers activated again. But this time the voice sounded terrified. Warning. Dominion warships have surrounded Black Void Outpost. All civilians remain where you are. Panic spread through the bar immediately. People rushed toward exits again. Others cried or prayed quietly. Everyone knew what Dominion fleets usually meant. Death. Jack looked at Varkros. How badly do they want my sister? The killer remained silent for 1 second too long. That told Jack everything. Damn, he muttered. The Dominion commander slowly stepped forward through the smoke. You have no idea what your sister stole, he said. Jack crossed his arms. Then explain it. The commander hesitated. Varkros spoke first. The weapon project is called Genesis. The room became quiet again. Even frightened civilians stopped moving. Jack noticed the fear in Varkros's voice. That alone worried him. What is Genesis? Jack asked. The killer's glowing eyes locked onto him. A biological super soldier program. Jack frowned. That sounds like normal Dominion stupidity. It was built using human DNA. Jack froze completely. For the first time during the battle. His confidence disappeared. Several nearby aliens whispered nervously. One smuggler slowly backed away from Jack like he suddenly became more dangerous. The commander laughed coldly. Now you understand. Jack slowly looked toward him. You experimented on humans? The commander smiled. We studied them. Jack's fists tightened. Without permission. Permission was unnecessary. Varkros watched carefully as anger slowly built inside the human. Real anger. Dangerous anger. Jack took a slow breath. How many humans? The commander stayed silent. Jack stepped closer. How many? Enough. The answer hit harder than any weapon. Jack's jaw tightened so hard it almost hurt. Humans were rare outside Earth. Some disappeared during deep space travel. Some vanished near Dominion territory. People always blamed pirates. Now Jack understood the truth. The Dominion had been taking humans for experiments. Using them. Testing them. Trying to copy what made humans dangerous. The commander activated a small hologram screen from his wrist. Images appeared above it. Laboratories. Medical tanks. Human prisoners floating unconscious inside liquid chambers. Alien scientists watching them from behind glass walls. Jack felt cold rage run through his body. One image showed soldiers wearing experimental combat armor. Their movements looked faster than normal species. Stronger. More aggressive. The commander smiled proudly. Humans survive injuries that kill other species, he explained. Your bodies adapt quickly. Your minds resist fear better than expected. Jack stared silently at the images. The commander continued speaking. Earth created perfect soldiers naturally. We simply improved the process. Jack suddenly grabbed the commander by the throat and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack the metal. The soldiers nearby raised weapons instantly. Varkros quietly aimed his rifle at them. Nobody moved. Jack held the commander off the ground with one hand. His eyes burned with fury now. You tortured people, Jack said quietly. The commander struggled to breathe. We created evolution. Jack slammed him harder into the wall. You created monsters. The commander laughed weakly despite the pain. That is exactly why the Dominion fears your sister. Jack slowly loosened his grip slightly. What did she steal? The final data. Varkros stepped closer. She stole the complete Genesis files, the killer explained. Research data. Laboratory locations. Names of scientists. Military plans. Jack looked toward him. She's trying to expose everything. Yes. The commander smirked despite bleeding from his mouth. But she cannot win. Jack threw him onto the floor. The commander groaned in pain while soldiers helped him stand again. You really think the galaxy will fight the Dominion over a few missing humans? The commander mocked. Jack stayed silent. The officer smiled wider. Most species already fear humans. Once they learn what your people can become. He paused. They may decide extermination is safer. The words hit the room hard. Several aliens nearby looked uncomfortable. Jack noticed. Humans already scared much of the galaxy. If the Dominion spread enough fear, other races might support war against Earth itself. That was the true weapon. Not soldiers. Fear. Jack finally understood why Elena stole the files. And why the Dominion wanted her dead so badly. Suddenly another explosion shook the station. This one stronger. The lights went out completely for several seconds before emergency power activated. Red warning lights filled the ruined bar again. A frightened voice came through the speakers. Warning. Hull breach detected. Unknown boarding parties entering the station. The Dominion commander looked confused. That's impossible. Varkros slowly turned toward the hallway outside the bar. No, the killer said quietly. It is not. Heavy footsteps echoed in the distance. Not Dominion soldiers. Something else. Something larger. The sound grew louder. Thud. 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 Several people inside the bar backed away fearfully. Jack noticed something strange. Even Varkros looked tense now. That definitely was not normal. Then the commander's communicator suddenly activated. A terrified voice shouted through static. Sir. They're here. Who's here? The commander demanded. The answer came with panic. The Karen hunters. Fear instantly spread across the Dominion soldiers. One trooper whispered, no. Jack looked confused. The who? Varkros answered quietly. Elite mercenaries. Dominion mercenaries. The killer slowly shook his head. Worse. The heavy footsteps stopped outside the ruined bar. Complete silence followed. Then the metal doors bent inward violently. Not opened. Bent. Like something incredibly strong stood outside. Jack slowly smiled again. Well, he said calmly, this night keeps getting interesting. Then the doors exploded inward. The bar doors exploded inward with terrifying force. Metal crashed across the floor while smoke poured through the entrance. Then they walked in. Huge armored figures stepped through the ruined doorway carrying black pulse cannons larger than normal rifles. Their armor looked heavy enough to stop tank fire, and glowing red symbols covered their chest plates. The Karen hunters. The most feared mercenary group in the outer systems. Even pirates and warlords avoided them. There were only 5 of them. But 5 was enough. The entire room froze. One Dominion soldier whispered nervously, we're dead. The leader of the hunters stepped forward slowly. He stood nearly 7 feet tall with dark armor covered in scars from old battles. A long energy axe rested across his back. His helmet scanned the room before locking onto Jack. So, the hunter said in a deep mechanical voice, the human is real. Jack crossed his arms casually. That depends. Who's asking? The giant ignored the joke. You are Jack Mercer. Maybe. You have something our employer wants. Jack smiled slightly. Yeah. Lots of people want things from me. The hunter pointed toward the Dominion commander. These soldiers are no longer in control here. The commander stepped forward angrily. This station belongs to the Dominion. Without warning. Boom. One of the hunters fired instantly. The commander flew backward across the room, dead before hitting the floor. Silence filled the bar again. Even the Dominion soldiers looked shocked. The hunter leader lowered his weapon slowly. Now, he said calmly, we can continue. Jack looked impressed. Okay, he admitted. That was dramatic. Varkros quietly moved closer beside Jack. The Karen hunters never leave witnesses, he warned softly. Jack glanced sideways at him. Then this should be fun. The hunters spread across the room carefully. Their movements were disciplined. Professional. Nothing like the panicked Dominion troops. These mercenaries had killed for years. The leader looked directly at Jack again. Hand over the Genesis data. Jack's expression stayed relaxed. I don't have it. The hunter tilted his head slightly. Incorrect answer. Suddenly the station shook again from another explosion outside. Emergency lights flickered wildly. A damaged voice came through the speakers. Warning. Reactor stability falling. Station collapse possible. Panic spread instantly among civilians. People rushed for exits screaming. The hunters ignored them completely. Their attention remained locked on Jack. The leader slowly pulled the massive energy axe from his back. Blue electricity crackled along the blade. We were paid to recover the data, he said coldly. Your survival was not included. Jack rolled his shoulders slowly. Finally, he muttered. Someone honest. Then everything exploded into violence. The hunter closest to Jack fired first. Boom. Jack flipped sideways behind a destroyed table as plasma rounds ripped through the floor. Varkros instantly returned fire with deadly accuracy. His rifle shot slammed into one hunter's armor. And did nothing. Jack noticed immediately. Oh, he said from cover. That's bad. The hunters advanced through gunfire without slowing down. Heavy armor absorbed pulse shots like rain. One hunter grabbed a Dominion soldier and threw him across the room hard enough to break bones. Another smashed through the bar counter with pure strength. The civilians trapped inside screamed in terror. Jack quickly scanned the battlefield. Too many enemies. Too much armor. Direct fighting would get everyone killed. Then he noticed the damaged fuel pipes above the room leaking gas from the earlier explosions. And suddenly, he smiled. Varkros saw the smile and immediately became concerned. You have a plan. Oh yeah. That worries me. Jack grabbed a fallen pulse rifle and fired directly at the ceiling pipes. Sparks exploded overhead. Fuel gas burst into the air instantly. What are you doing? Varkros shouted. Jack grinned wildly. Improvising. The hunters realized too late. Jack pulled a small metal lighter from his pocket. The mercenary leader's eyes widened. Oh no. Jack flicked the lighter. Hum. The entire upper half of the bar exploded into flames. Fire blasted across the ceiling while shockwaves knocked everyone backward. The hunters staggered for the first time. Their armor protected them. But the explosion damaged their visor systems. Jack charged immediately. Fast. Aggressive. Fearless. He jumped onto a burning table and slammed both boots into one hunter's chest. The giant mercenary crashed backward into a wall. Jack grabbed the fallen energy axe before the hunter could recover. The weapon felt heavy even for him. Damn, Jack muttered. What do you guys eat? Another hunter rushed forward. Jack swung the axe sideways with everything he had. Crash. The energized blade smashed directly into the mercenary's armor. For the first time, the armor broke. The hunter flew backward hard enough to crack metal support beams. Several Dominion soldiers stared in shock. The mercenaries were supposed to be unstoppable. Jack laughed again. Loud. Wild. Completely fearless. And suddenly the hunters understood something dangerous. Humans became more terrifying during desperate situations. Pain pushed them harder. Fear made them faster. Chaos made them stronger. The hunter leader roared angrily and charged Jack with another energy weapon. The giant swung downward hard enough to split steel. Jack barely dodged aside. The blade crashed into the floor, sending sparks everywhere. Jack countered instantly with a brutal punch to the helmet. The hunter barely moved. "Oh," Jack breathed. "You're tougher than the others." The mercenary grabbed Jack by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Several nearby aliens gasped. The hunter squeezed harder. "You think this is a game, human?" Jack struggled slightly for air. Then he smiled. "Little bit." The hunter hesitated in confusion. "Big mistake." Jack activated the energy axe still in his hand and slammed it directly into the hunter's side armor. Electricity exploded across the giant mercenary. The hunter roared in pain and released him immediately. Jack hit the floor hard but rolled back onto his feet. Varkros suddenly appeared behind another hunter and stabbed a combat blade into a weak armor joint near the neck. The mercenary collapsed instantly. "Two left," Jack shouted. "Three," Varkros corrected. Jack turned just in time to see the leader charging again through the flames. The giant moved like a tank. Heavy. Fast. Deadly. Jack tightened his grip on the axe. Then he grinned. "Now this," he said, "is getting fun." At that exact moment, his jacket communicator activated. A female voice crackled through the static. "Jack, if that's really you." Jack froze instantly. "Elena," he whispered. His sister sounded terrified. "They found me." Jack froze after hearing the voice. "Elena?" Static crackled through the communicator again. "Jack, listen to me," his sister said quickly. "The Dominion found the data vault. They're bringing Genesis off the station right now." The burning bar suddenly felt colder. Jack tightened his grip on the energy axe. "Where are you?" he asked. "Docking Sector 12, Elena answered. "But you don't have much time." The communicator cut out. The Karen hunter leader slowly stood from the flames nearby. Damaged armor sparked across his massive body, but he was still alive. Still dangerous. "You are distracted, human," the giant growled. Jack looked toward him calmly. "Yeah," he replied. "And now I'm angry too." The hunter charged forward again. Heavy footsteps shook the floor while the energy blade screamed through the air. Jack moved instantly. He ducked beneath the attack and slammed the axe into the hunter's leg armor. Crack. Metal broke apart. The giant dropped to one knee. Jack grabbed the hunter's helmet with one hand and smashed his head directly into a burning support beam. The mercenary collapsed motionless. Silence filled the ruined bar. Smoke drifted through the broken lights while fires burned across the walls. The remaining Dominion soldiers slowly backed away from Jack. Nobody wanted to fight him anymore. Not after seeing what he had done. Jack tossed the damaged energy axe aside. "We're leaving," he said. Varkros reloaded his rifle calmly. A wise decision. One frightened Dominion trooper aimed shakily at Jack. You're monsters." Jack looked at the soldier. "No," he answered quietly. "Monsters created Genesis." Then he walked past him. The soldier did not fire. None of them did. Even heavily armed troops feared standing in the human's path now. Jack and Varkros quickly moved through the damaged station corridors while emergency alarms screamed around them. Red lights flashed everywhere. Civilians pushed past them trying to reach escape ships. Smoke filled the halls. Parts of the station had already lost gravity, causing loose debris and bodies to float through the air. Jack moved fast. Faster than before. Because now his sister was in danger. You trust her plan? Varkros asked while they ran. Jack nodded once. Elena's smarter than me. That is not difficult. Jack smirked slightly. Was that a joke? No. Close enough. Another explosion shook the station. Metal groaned loudly overhead. Black Void Outpost was dying. When they reached docking sector 12, the scene looked like a war zone. Destroyed cargo crates burned across the hangar floor. Dead Dominion soldiers lay everywhere beside damaged security drones. And in the center of the chaos stood Elena Mercer. She held a pulse rifle tightly while several wounded civilians hid behind her. Jack stopped for half a second. His sister looked exhausted. Bruises covered one side of her face, and oil stains marked her gray jacket. But her eyes remained sharp. Focused. Dangerous. Then she saw him. Jack. He smiled. Took you long enough to call. Elena immediately ran toward him and hugged him tightly. For one brief moment, the chaos around them disappeared. Then she punched his shoulder hard. You idiot, she snapped. Why did you come here? Jack laughed softly. You sound happy to see me. I was safer before you arrived. Varkros stepped closer carefully. Elena Mercer. She instantly raised her rifle toward him. You brought Varkros here. Jack raised both hands. Relax. He's helping. Elena looked unconvinced. The galaxy's deadliest killer is helping us. Varkros answered calmly. The Dominion crossed certain lines. Elena stared at him for several seconds. Then she lowered the weapon slightly. Fine, she muttered. But I'm still watching him. Suddenly loud engines echoed through the hangar. A massive Dominion transport ship slowly descended outside the broken docking shield. Dozens of soldiers poured from the entrance ramps. Heavy weapons. Combat drones. Elite armor. An entire strike force. Jack sighed deeply. You ever notice bad guys love dramatic entrances? Elena quickly activated a hologram from her wrist device. A large data file appeared in the air. Genesis, she said seriously. Every file. Every experiment. Every scientist involved. Varkros looked surprised. You still have the data. Of course I do. Jack crossed his arms. So what's the plan? Elena smiled slightly. We send it everywhere. Jack blinked. Everywhere. All systems. All networks. Every government. Every news station. Varkros finally understood. The Dominion cannot hide the project if the entire galaxy sees it. Exactly. The first Dominion troops opened fire. Pulse rounds exploded across the hangar instantly. Jack grabbed Elena and pulled her behind cover. The battle began immediately. But this fight felt different. Because now they were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to expose the truth. Varkros eliminated soldiers with cold precision while Elena hacked station systems beside him. Jack charged directly into the battlefield like a living weapon. Punches. Gunfire. Explosions. Everywhere he moved, Dominion forces fell back. The soldiers feared him now. Stories had already spread through their ranks. The laughing human. The Deathworlder. The monster who enjoyed impossible fights. One terrified trooper shouted, "Keep him away from us." Jack heard him and grinned. Too late. He slammed into the front line like a missile. Meanwhile Elena connected her device into the station network. Progress bars flashed across the screen. Uploading Genesis files. 15%. 32%. 51%. Dominion officers noticed instantly. "Stop that transmission," one commander screamed. Combat drones rushed toward Elena. Varkros destroyed 2 immediately. Jack tore another apart with his bare hands after it tackled him through a cargo crate. The upload continued. 67%. 81%. 95%. The Dominion commander looked desperate now. "If those files spread, the Senate will destroy us." Elena's fingers moved faster across the controls. "Good. 100%. Upload complete." For 1 second. Everything became silent. Then thousands of communication systems across the galaxy activated at once. Genesis was exposed. The truth could no longer be buried. The Dominion had lost. Several soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. Others simply stood frozen in shock. Jack walked back toward Elena, breathing heavily. "You did it." She smiled tiredly. "We did it." Months later. Stories about Black Void Outpost spread across every corner of the galaxy. People whispered about the human who laughed at killers. The Deathworlder who fought entire armies. The man who refused to fear monsters. Some believed the stories were exaggerated. Others knew they were not exaggerated enough. Inside a distant station bar, nervous mercenaries quietly shared rumors over drinks. Then suddenly, a loud human laugh echoed near the counter. The entire room went silent. One pirate slowly turned pale. "No way." Jack Mercer raised his glass with a grin while Varkros sat beside him looking annoyed as always. "What?" Jack asked. "Why is everybody staring?" Nobody answered. Because deep down, the galaxy still feared the laughing human Deathworlder.